The Speakers Bank Podcast. Our voices, our views.
We're sitting here today in the Enecto boardroom. I'm Justin from Enecto's Marketing and Communications Department, and we're here with Nathan Slachter.
Yep, you got it right.
Yep. Nathan, you've been with Speakers Bank for how long?
Yeah, well, that sounds weird when I say it like that. I've been with Speakers Bank and under Vimia's supervision, I'll say, for the better part of probably 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm. And in that time, what sort of experiences have you had with Speakers Bank?
Look, I'd say overall it's been good. I think when I first started with Mimi, I was a bit hesitant because I didn't quite know how to work with someone like her, because I wasn't used to someone being so direct. But it's actually been really good because it's taught me that I can be direct and just tell her exactly what I think about something, which has actually been really good. So I like that in someone. When I first started with Mimi, I just wasn't used to it. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually glad that she's like that.
Yeah. And through your involvement with Speakers Bank, what types of events have you been doing in the community?
Sure. So Mimi has been able to hook me in with radio shows, so I've done a few interviews. I've gotten involved with podcasts. Excuse me. What else have I done? I've done university talks. I've been to exhibitions. I've actually been to an Enecto AGM, and I've met Melbourne 9 newsreader Peter Hitchener.
Yep.
So that's very proudly posted on my Facebook. That was probably one of the highlights. So because especially I want to start getting into media and mingling with celebrities and things like that. So it's been a really good opportunity. What else have I done? I've got to try and think now.
You mentioned before we came on air that you were involved in a radio program as well?
Yeah, so for a while Enecto had a program through Joy 94.9 called Absolutely Everybody. It's now not running, but I was a part of that for a while before I joined the Student Youth Network, where I did some breakfast radio stuff on Get Serial. What else have I done? I've done a couple of talks for some universities. I've done a couple of units in public speaking, so I've got a statement of attainment for that. And I'm actually about to go into a Bachelor of Communications, so I'm effectively going to finish off a few of those modules, and hopefully within a couple of years I'll have a Bachelor of Communications under my belt, which will be great for both me and Speakers Bank at large.
Yeah, well, let's come back to that in a moment, but I guess I'm keen to find out a bit more about Nathan, the person at the moment. So tell me a little bit, what are you up to in Melbourne at the moment, and where do you live, and what's your day-to-day?
Well, as it currently stands, in terms of day-to-day, it's basically organising a move to the Gold Coast, essentially.
Okay.
Because as we record this, I'm basically in the process of shifting. This time, in fact, in Tuesday in 2 weeks, which actually on a plane flying to the Gold Coast.
And you're moving there from Melbourne for good.
You never say never, but the plan is for good. I certainly don't plan to come back to Melbourne. I do have some family down here, but ultimately the goal is, regardless, to stay in Queensland.
Mm-hmm. And so what is it that's drawn you up to the Gold Coast? Why are you making that big move?
There's actually multiple things. One of the things I began to realise in January, because I previously did some modules at a Bible college, and I began to realise at the end of last year that it just wasn't for me. I wanted to do some media stuff, and I actually entered into a relationship in December, and when I went up to in about January, I kind of thought, well, I need to start looking outside of the state for some media courses and some communications courses, because as comfortable as I am in Melbourne, there was just nothing.
So Nathan, I guess it's a big move to go from Melbourne up to Queensland. What's behind that?
So one thing is I've had personal circumstances that have caused me to want to go up there with various people that have come into my life. Also the fact that there's not really a lot of opportunities in media, at least as far as I know, really in Melbourne. I had looked around for courses and there was absolutely really nothing.
So you'd applied and you'd knocked on a few doors and...
Yeah, and what I essentially did was in early January I'd applied at Homespun for a diploma in media and television.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I would get it. I never heard anything back. And so then I thought, well, then I have to start looking outside the state. And when I did a Google search, realistically, basically most of the opportunities were either Queensland, Brisbane or the Gold Coast, or it was Sydney basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I've got my own personal reasons for moving up to Queensland, so I thought, well, why not why not just make the move and give it a crack.
And so what have you enrolled in a course in the Gold Coast?
Yeah, so I have enrolled in a course through Griffiths, through Open Universities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be doing a Bachelor of Communications.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that will take probably the better part of maybe 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time I also plan to enroll in a job provider and look for some work. But yeah, that's basically what the plan stands, where the plans stand, I should say, at the moment.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you've got a really clear idea as to how you want to progress things over the next few years then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And what are you hoping after the course, what opportunities are you hoping might open up for you?
I'm hoping a lot more speaking gigs will come away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much hoping that I can essentially make a living from doing some radio and communications
mm-hmm.
stuff. So I'm essentially basically hoping that I can get to the stage where, whether it be through a Necto or whether it be through another agency or multiple agencies even, that I can be paid well enough to make a living out of doing a few speaking gigs a week.
Mm. Yeah, and so Speakers Bank, are you hoping that that's something that you might be able to start up in Queensland as well?
Well, that's the plan at the moment. So what I'm hoping is that after we really promote Speakers Bank, that we can eventually get an office and get some staff. Well, at least I don't know what Mimi's plan is, but I would like to see eventually us getting an office and some support staff up there, because eventually I will need a network of people to help me, because Mimi obviously won't be able to keep flying up all the time, and I will eventually need support staff when things keep growing.
Mm.
I was going to say when people keep growing, that makes no sense. But yeah, because I think eventually, Speakers Bank isn't just me, but it's a whole host of people that make me look really good.
Yeah, and is that something that, do you know if Mimi's been working on that project up until now?
Well, it's kind of more just in the planning phase, so we've run it by Joan. She likes, the idea, and the reality is I'm hoping that we can get some funds and some momentum together, because as I said, bar Mimi flying up, which will probably have to happen every quarter or every few months or so, the reality is I will get to the stage where I at least need a couple of people permanently up there to help me, and some facilities like something like this, office to work out of. Because I think eventually, and as I've said to Mimi, and this is no fault of Speakers Bank, but I can't keep doing things for free, because I do need to. I'm 25 and I do need to start making a living beyond what the government can give me.
For sure. You mentioned that you had some personal reasons for going up to the Gold Coast without putting you on the spot too much. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I can tell you a little bit about that. I've basically, got, I'd say this. I've got people in my life that are, very near and dear to me. So I've decided to make the move because they live up there. For privacy reasons, I won't disclose too much. But yeah, it's more than enough reason to want to shift up there.
So Nathan, tell us a bit about what your situation was when you first came into Speakers Bank, and what were you like as a person, and what was your personality like, and how has Speakers Bank, been a way for you to help develop yourself personally?
Okay, so you're really asking multiple questions there. So to take you back to 2014, when I very first started at Speakers Bank, I pretty much had no study under my belt. I was doing a work education course out of Melbourne City Mission at the time. Around when I first joined Speakers Bank, I had no formal training as a speaker whatsoever. In fact, I can remember my first speaking gig to a very, very, very small university class. They were all people that are probably qualified now, actually, but they were studying to be either youth workers or social workers. And I literally remember my first speaking gig because I had to do it with no script in front of me, nothing, because Mimi on that day had actually forgotten my copy of the speech.
Right.
So I actually had to do everything basically off the top of my head. It was my first speaking gig. I had no formal training as far as the certificate goes, but I somehow managed it, because nowadays when I turn up to a gig, I don't have a copy of anything in front of me. I might make a few notes. Like I even said, like when we did some formal training, to be completely honest with you, and I'm perfectly happy for this to go into the interview, I actually said to the trainer, I said, "Oh look, I'll do all the whatever's necessary to qualify, but the way that you're teaching this course is, I don't write speeches like that. I don't have like a plan of going, I'm going to make cue cards and I'm going to make slides. Like Mimi knows me well enough to know, like, and as much as this disappointed her and Williamstown High School at the time, I hate using slides because the thing is, for me, I'm not a lecturer. Like I'm a very casual person. Like the last thing I want to do to an audience is say, here's a slide, take a bunch of notes, and don't focus on what I'm saying, because I know even for me, for example, when it comes to universities and stuff, I can either listen to what you're saying or I can take notes, but I can't do both. So I know for me that's one of the things that I hate using slides. I've come around to it more so now, as Mimi knows, but I'm not very big on using it and scrolling through it. So it's one of those things where I'll put my picture up and some basic information, but if it doesn't get used, it doesn't get used, because I don't refer to it.
Yeah, so in the time that you've been working with Speakers Bank and doing speaking engagements, and how have you found, what changes have you felt have happened within yourself?
Well, it's probably made me realise more that I wanted to explore, the media industry. I've always, wanted to do radio and stuff, and stuff like that, and television, but I never really saw, actually doing public appearances and speaking as I suppose as a career pathway. Like I literally thought when I joined Speakers Bank, I thought, this is probably one of those things where I'll do it casually, but I'll end up working, somewhere like Optus or Telstra for the rest of my life, and I'll probably just do occasional voluntary speaking gigs. I actually didn't think that it would be possible for me to turn it into an actual career, which is what it looks like it's going to do.
Thinking about Speakers Bank, and obviously Enecto is the organisation that produces Speakers Bank. If you were going to talk with somebody who was thinking about becoming a speaker with Speakers Bank, what sort of advice would you give them, or what sort of information could you tell them about how Enecto and Speakers Bank work with individuals?
Well, the first thing I'd probably say to them is you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. I'd probably say to someone, the reality is I look at, as I said to you, I look at someone like myself, and I came in here with no formal training. I was very timid, very, you couldn't get me up in front of a class of 25 people to speak. Now I could probably speak to 500 people, and I'd be completely, comfortable with it. So it's actually really increased, my confidence and things like that. As I said to you, I don't know, I currently host a podcast through Speakers Bank, and I never saw myself actually doing that. People actually said to me, even as a child, we can see you on TV and radio and all this stuff, and I just used to brush it off. But now I'm actually starting to do what people said I would do, even as a child.
Sure. So I guess one of Enecto's values is looking to find ways to allow people to get more out of their lives by being more included in society.
Yeah.
Can you reflect on that a little bit, I guess, about what you've just said, the impact that Speakers Bank has had on you?
Sure. So I think with anything, whether you're looking for work or whether you're wanting to, even volunteer for an organisation, I think it's about being given a go, which is what Enecto and Speakers Bank do really, really well. Because one of the things I speak on in at least one of my talks is disability and how the judgment impacts on someone like myself. Now, depending on the audience, some of them take that as a negative thing to say, you're whinging or you're offended. But the reality is, it's not so much that, but it's about saying to people, you need to realise that you need to start seeing beyond the disability, which I think, for example, a lot of employers, and we're talking, people that work in, various industries could actually learn from, because I find personally that even, for example, with employment agencies, they'll sit there and say to me, you're very employable, but as soon as you approach the employer, they're immediately intimidated by, your disability. I know, for example, and I won't name them, but I've applied at various, telecommunications providers for, actual shop work, like selling products.
Yeah.
And they've even admitted you can do the job, but you just don't have the experience we want. And I think it actually comes down to the fact that it's all about the brand. So it's like saying and it's not to say that they've said this directly, but the reality is I'm not stupid, and I know that what they're really saying to me is you're not good for our image because you don't look the way, you don't look how, society generally accepts people. You're not, the kind of poster boy that we want, representing our shop front. I think that's actually really, it's not great, but I think if more, big name telecommunications providers actually went, we'll give people with disabilities a go, I think for someone like myself that would actually be really good for their image, because it makes it a bit more family friendly, and it shows that they really are about, including people and giving people a go.
So that's really interesting, because when we look at that in the context of what you said before about wanting a career in the media or communications, that's a very visible, very upfront career, and obviously you would be someone who is probably quite doesn't present the same norm that many people in the media or communications would. Do you see yourself as an advocate for people with disability in that way?
I personally, I think so, yeah, because I think that, I'm just trying to get my head together, I think that, you know, more people, you know, need to see the individual rather than, you know, the disability. Like, as I said to you, and I know that when I look back on this and, you know, I probably look at this recording and I probably won't because of the way that I sound on camera, but the reality is that it's, you know, people just need to see beyond the disability and realise that, you know, the lights are on and somebody is home. And, you know, I'm perfectly, you know, competent to conduct an interview. Like, I'd love to host, you know, eventually television programs like The Project or, you know, something comical even. That the reality is that, you know, big name, you know, television networks don't want the person like me. They ideally want someone who looks, quote, normal. You know, they don't want the person that has the squints, which is only cosmetic. You know, they don't want the person that has, you know, slightly funny hand gestures. You know, they want the person that you carry a bit more, you're wally dally, you know, the person that looks kind of perfect.
Yeah. How what thoughts do you have actually on the portrayal of diversity on television at the moment?
I'd say this: the focus, especially on television at the moment, is, you know, more seems to be, you know, and especially when it comes to things like the plebiscite, the focus seems to be more on, you know, inclusion of, you know, LGBT people or, you know, people that are same-sex attracted, and that's all fine. I get that, because I think everyone should be given a go. You know, you look at people like Tom Ballard, they host their own show, but when it comes to people like me, because with the way that I am, you can visibly see it. So where, for example, someone might not feel comfortable with their orientation or something like that, I'm not necessarily comfortable, you know, with my disability, because I know that people can see it and I can't hide it, but it makes it harder because unlike someone who may not be comfortable, you know, with being, you know, for example, same-sex attracted, you know, they can hide that. I can't hide, you know, my condition and the way that I am. And I think that, you know, as I said to you, you know, the focus then needs to turn to, you know, not just the LGBTQI community, but, you know, people like myself who also want to be given a go and yet get discriminated in their own way as well.
Could you see yourself on Home and Away in the future or something like that?
I think if I was, to be honest with you, if I was given the opportunity for an acting role, I'd probably take it. I did like drama in school, so it's one of those industries where I would take what I can get. If I get asked by, you know, I don't know if Amy remembers the talent agency that, you know, got me to film a training video for Hungry Jack's, which now is national all across Australia, I would do something like that again, or I would film an ad. Because I think that they're one of the few talent agencies that I've come across that's willing to say, well, we actually, you know, can see what your abilities and what you can do rather than the way that you look.
So Nathan, I guess just looking forward, we've talked about what you hope to be doing in the near future with your studies. Let's look forward maybe 10 years, 20 years. What will Nathan Slachter be doing in 10 or 20 years' time, do you hope?
I'd like to be fully entrenched in media stuff. By that stage, I'd like to have done a few years worth of breakfast radio. I think if I can stay with a commercial radio station for 10 years. I'd like to then, dabble in some television. I think that I'd like to keep up the. I'm just getting my thoughts together. I think I'd like to keep up with the speaking gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think more as I head probably into 50, 60, 70. I don't think I'd ever really retire from the media, but it would be more just about slowing down a little bit and maybe more of a coaching role, coaching the next generation.
Mentoring, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a long way off. I mean, I'm only 25, so I've got a lot of steam left in me yet.
Yeah, terrific. Well, I think you've got some great ideas and some great ambitions, so it would be fantastic to see where you do end up in 10 years' time. Really looking forward to it. So Nathan, from everyone at Anecdo, thanks for joining us here today. We've really enjoyed the chat.
No problems. Thank you very much.